Jeffrey Lord is a guy who was the sole Trump supporter on all of those CNN panels when everyone thought Hillary was going to win. He writes for the American Spectator. Shout out to Rowan Dean and the Australian Spectator. It is their brother publication here in the US. We had a chance to chat on the rooftop just a few hours ago.
It was a lot of fun. I had a great time. On one occasion, we were in a commercial break on CNN, and it had been one of these 8-to-1 situations. And I look down and I see this note, Trump just tweeted about you. And I look, and it says, there he is, all by himself, that nice Jeffrey Lord versus 8 people.
Well, this is the thing, because, I mean, look, we get it. Look, we're conservative, so we know how the trick works. But normally it's 1-on-1. Normally it's 2-on-1. Right. Maybe it'll be 3-on-1. But those panels, they get pretty wild, and you've got everyone from 20-year broadcast experienced people to former high-profile administration people, and then there's little old you pushing back.
As it evolved, and the thing that amazed me was, to give you an example, I was home in the middle of Pennsylvania the weekend before Halloween in 2016. It's a Saturday, and I said to my then 97-year-old mom, we're going to get in the car and we're going to go out in the countryside and get a pumpkin. So we do this, and suddenly I'm beginning to notice there are Trump signs absolutely everywhere, including hand-painted on the side of a barn.
Wow.
And I'm counting hundreds of these things. I count for Hillary signs, one. Okay, so we get to Monday, and I tell this story on the air, and they look at me, my friends look at me like I'm crazy.
Yeah.
And said, in effect, Jeff, the polling data. I said, guys, I mean, I'm there on the ground. These things do not happen by accident. Something is going on.
Well, you should have called it, you should have trademarked it, call it the pumpkin poll. Yeah, where the pumpkin index says when you go to pick up the pumpkin, you can work out what's happening. But it's like this thing where I think that much of the metrics that are built up by the media, built up by the universities, they miss normal people.
Yes, they do.
So they're built to essentially get confirmation bias.
That's right. And the way they structure these polls, a lot of times they have more Democrats than Republicans. Yeah. They're not sufficiently weighted. Age, I mean, the whole thing is skewed. So then they pop it out. And, there are a lot of people on my side that think these polls are deliberately skewed and then put out there for a reason. To convince people. Yeah,
and it's about momentum. It's about narrative building.
My favorite of all time is election morning, and I checked the New York Times, and the headline said, Hillary Clinton has an 85% chance of winning tonight.
It's great.
I mean, this was only hours before the election, right? Yeah. I mean, the election was in progress, and I just shook my head and I said, I can't believe this,
The other day, I was talking to a guy pretty high up in business here. He's making so much money since tax cuts changed. He calls himself a Republican, but I don't know if I'm going to vote for Trump. Can you understand the establishment Republican who doesn't want to support a guy who, is unorthodox, is imperfect, is difficult at times, but he's got the Supreme Court, he's cutting taxes, he's doing all of the things that the R is supposed to be about, right?
That's right. I have to say, I've been here before with this. I worked in the White House for Ronald Reagan, and after Trump announced his candidacy and everybody was saying he can't win and what a disaster it would be if he ran and if he were nominated, I went back and took a look because I remembered some of this so I went back and looked, and sure enough, there was one Republican establishment person after another in the 1960s and 70s and in early 1980 saying that if Ronald Reagan were ever nominated for president, it would spell the end of the Republican Party, it would severely damage the country, he would lose in a landslide, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, on and on. I mean, people with names like Gerald Ford and Nelson Rockefeller and Senator Charles Percy from Illinois, not to mention the New York Times and the Washington Post and all of these people. And I just thought, they don't get it. They're so out of touch. I mean, we're talking here in Washington, D.C., and I lived here for a long time. I can only tell you this is like a little bubble.
Yeah.
People here, good people, but they work together, they socialize together, they live in the same sort of neighborhoods. They're neighbors, as were mine, or members of Congress, or journalists, et cetera, et cetera. They're totally removed from what life is like in the middle of America. I've now long since moved back home, and that's when I began. I wrote my first column, Never Ignore Donald Trump, for the American Spectator in June of 2013.
Wow.
And of course, my friends thought I was absolutely insane. But the thing that I knew was, it wasn't that I was hearing people in my area talk about Trump per se, but they were talking about illegal immigration. They were talking about Obamacare. They were talking about trade and jobs going to Mexico and all this kind of thing. And as I got to know Donald Trump myself, in private, he is saying the same things to me. And I thought, you know, wow, if this energy force ever met this energy force, you could have quite an explosion here, quite a political explosion, and that is exactly what happened.
So do you believe that the same people who either took a chance, made a protest, threw a monkey wrench, whatever the metaphors are, just those little sort of couple of points here, couple of points there, are those people going to turn up next year to reappoint Trump as president?
Sure, sure. When I go to these rallies, and I've been to 3 of them, I think, both before he was elected and after. And, you know, because I'm on television, I get recognized, which is great because people come up to me and talk, and I really get a chance to hear them out. And what I would hear is, you know, I never voted before. And Donald Trump is the person who inspired me to go get registered to vote and vote. Or I hadn't voted in a while, or I'd become so cynical, and I'm so enthusiastic. In the last couple of weeks, I personally have been at 2 events, one in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and one in outside of Harrisburg for Trump supporters. Oh my goodness, Paul. I mean, these people are so revved and so excited, and I have taken to calling it the enthusiasm factor. These people are going to show up, they're going to organize, they are possessed that they are going to re-elect Donald Trump. And that's the kind of enthusiasm that I simply don't see on the other side. I mean, I cannot imagine that kind of enthusiasm for, God bless him, good old Joe Biden.
Oh, yeah, please. It's not going to happen, or Beto, or any of those people. Because the thing where I think that's something that is a distortive factor for the establishment left in America, Australia, and the UK is they confuse internet activism and passion for real life, 2 feet, 2 hands. What are you willing to say at the dinner table? So they think, oh, this person's got 6 million this and 5 million that.
No.
Do they have one of these?
Yeah, I think it is a mammoth mistake, and I understand why it gets made, because relatively speaking, Twitter is a new phenomenon. And I understand what's happening. They're reading their Twitter feeds and thinking, oh my God, it's all there. But then you talk to real people, flesh and blood people who are actually going to go out and pull a lever. It's just a totally different picture, and I think they are making a huge mistake with this.
Yeah, I agree. All right, just finally, our Prime Minister is getting the royal treatment here, full state visit, full meetings. It's not since Emmanuel Macron's the only other one that Donald Trump's done this for.
Right.
They have quite an affinity, strong on border security. They're going to go to Ohio together as well to open up a brand new factory. What do you want our Australian Prime Minister to learn from the way Donald Trump runs a joint?
Well, you know, his economic policies, for one, and national security. I mean, the president clearly is not one of these people that wants to send American troops all over the world all of the time, et cetera, and remake the world. There is a realization there that some people are just going to be some people, and, you know, you can't make them Australians and you can't make them Americans. That said, you're going to protect the national security of your countries, and Australia and America have been so close over the years. You know, when I was a kid, I was a big fan of President Kennedy, and they had a movie out on PT 109, his experiences, and of course, an Australian coast watcher played a key role in getting John F. Kennedy plucked out of the sea and rescued. Yeah. So that was my sort of first awareness as a kid of the importance of Australia, and I'm sure the Prime Minister is going to hear this directly from the President. Well, the state did. I mean, there's a reason for all of this, and that's because they're friends, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff, Wherever you end up on telly for the 2020 election, I'll be there on the other side of the world watching.
All right.
Thank you,
Paul.
Good on you.
Good to see you.
Jeffrey Lord is his name. American Spectator is where you can find him.